He just sent a serious message. As Alexis Lafrenière speaks out on his season thus far, Peter Laviolette makes some more surprising comments ahead of the team's return to action, and we have multiple other updates from the team to go over today. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest, but before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the New York Rangers, from trade rumors, trade reports, practice updates, injury updates, all that good stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But today we have a very interesting report to go over, and this is from Vince Mercogliano on Alexis Lafreniere's season thus far. We're also going to get into some very interesting comments that Peter Laviolette made on not just Alexis Lafrenière, but on the team. And again, some other interesting updates, and one player that has been surprising so far since the turn of the calendar year to 2025. And Vince Mercogliano went on to say that the first guy he sat down with to talk with after the break was Alexis Lafrenière, who sounded disappointed with how his season has gone after a promising start. If you remember, early on this season, in October, bleeding into November a little bit, this player was on fire. This was a great player, and it was looking like he was going to be well worth his contract. And I mean, he ended last season on fire. His playoffs was amazing. I mean, almost a point-a-game player in the playoffs. So again, if you can remember back to earlier this season, it looked like he was playing at a point-a-game pace. He was having a great season, but not the case. It's kind of dropped off a little bit. We talked about resetting, pressure from the contract, and yes, back checking, because that has been a topic of conversation lately. So that was a couple days ago, and finally the report dropped, and Alexis Lafrenière took the break to reset, relax a little bit, and be fresh for the rest of the year, which may have been just what the doctor ordered for a lot of these guys on the Rangers team. But again, Alexis Lafrenière is not pleased with how his season has gone so far, and he went on to say, getting back on the ice was great. He was happy to be back, in the locker room with everybody. We play a lot of games in the season. You never really stop, it feels like. So you get a mid-season break. It's always good to kind of reset, relax a little bit, and be fresh for the rest of the year. Now, this can go one way or the other for this team, I think. Like, they can, use this break to really galvanize the rest of the team, especially with what happens tonight in the game between Team USA and Canada. It really depends. If Team USA wins, I mean, a lot of these Rangers are going to come back in really good moods and ready to get going here, right? But again, this break could go both ways. I mean, they can really come out slow out of the gate, right? So it's going to be very interesting. He is right. I mean, the last couple of weeks in terms of, what's been happening in the NHL, not much. All eyes have been on the Four Nations face-off, so he was able to get away from that completely. And at times it feels like, the season runs on and on and on, especially for the players, obviously. I don't think any of these guys are 100% during the season, but hopefully they use this break to their advantage and not disadvantage and come out of the gate slow, because they're going to have to pick up a couple wins here really quick with some of the games that are coming up. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use this break. And he went on to say, I started off well, and then lately I haven't liked my game as much. I'm not making that many plays, but I feel like just the game in general, I'd like to be better and more involved. So the lack of scoring is troublesome. I mean, it is. I mean, if we take a look at his stats so far this season, I mean, not having the best year. I mean, yes, he's not making $10 or $11 million. He's not Artemi Panarin, where, you expect him to put up 120 points a season. But for $7.4 million, 32 points in 55 games, I don't think is good enough. And it's not just the point totals, because you could look at the point totals and be like, okay, maybe he's just not a point-a-game player. And with the, where the salary cap is going in this league, you can be like, all right, no problem, right? Not no problem, but it's not that big of an issue. It's the rest of his game. It's the back checking. It's the defensive, the lack of coverage in the defensive zone. The team defense I've been talking about all season, the lack of buy-in from especially the wingers in the center on any given line, except for obviously earlier this season with the third line. But, he's a minus 13 this year, and he's not even playing that much. There's other guys on the team that are playing upwards of 22 minutes a night. So, I think that, he needed a little bit of a reset here, and hopefully he can get going, not just offensively and get involved in plays, but defensively, get in that mindset to help the team defensively as well. And Peter Laviolette spoke out on this before we move on to some other updates about, obviously, Alexis Lafrenière. And he said, those things get addressed on a regular basis, and I don't disagree with what he said in terms of what Lafrenière said. When your team gets dialed in and on point, your shifts are at the right length, and you don't have the gas to back check, or you are making the right reads on the forecheck in the offensive zone. Not speaking just about him, but in general, that's smart hockey. That's playoff hockey. That's the hockey that you need to play in order to be successful. Those are learning lessons, and they have to be better than that. So I do agree to a degree with Peter Laviolette here that a lot of the guys, they just need to lock in. That's the fact of the matter. They just have to lock in at this point in this season if you want to make the playoffs. I mean, it is right there. It is very attainable. And one last quote here from Alexis Lafrenière: I can be a lot better personally everywhere, defensively, offensively, all over the ice. So he is going to take this as an opportunity, this break, to kind of reset here, come back from the break fresh, and try to get involved, not just, again, offensively, but defensively. Because his offensive game has been better than his defensive game this year, but it doesn't mean either of them are that great, right? So they need to he needs to get going here for sure in pretty short order. So he needs to start executing. This is the last thing from Lafrenière. It provided him a chance to escape expectations for a while, and the hope is that it'll revitalize him this season. And he went on to say, I play my best when I just go out there and play and don't think about everything. And you can see that at times, especially offensively, he's overthinking things, right? And I mean, the Rangers, as a theme this season, always overcomplicate everything for no reason, especially guys like K'Andre Miller. I've talked about it on the channel. There are so many players on this team that overcomplicate the game for no reason. Look what JT Miller's done since he's come in. Dump the puck in, go get it, right? Like, that's hockey 101. You do not have to overcomplicate the game to find success. And he said, that's what I'm trying to do. I'll try to be a lot better for the rest of the year. So pretty good stuff there from Alexis Lafrenière. Seems like a decent attitude, but he's got to put, the words into action. So I'm excited to see what they do. One other thing I wanted to go over before we wrap up here and get to one last thing. In terms of defensive pairs, it might be time to move off of Ryan Lindgren. We are inching closer to the trade deadline, and maybe it's time to revisit the Miller-Fox pairing, which is second best in the NHL for shot attempts for percent. So by all the advanced analytics, when they have played together, they have been pretty decent. So maybe it's time to put them back together and obviously move off of Ryan Lindgren for some assets, maybe move a younger player in there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And the last thing I'll mention before I wrap up here, great piece from Remy Mastery on Sam Carrick. Sam Carrick's been great since the turn of the new year. I mean, I think he's been good all year, but he's really made a difference. I would argue he almost won them 2 games on a road trip there earlier in January. So he's been great, blocking shots, getting in lanes, doing everything you need your fourth line center to do. So I think that he's been great. Just wanted to highlight there. And Carrick is very happy with the progress he's made, but his hunger to get better and better remains intact. He says, I'm feeling more and more comfortable now. There's always room for improvement. I think I'm always looking for ways to get better. Obviously, it's a long season. I'm looking for each and every game to have a positive contribution to the game. I think for the most part, I'm just trying to be consistent. Honestly, again, like I said, at the turn of the new year, he has been very consistent. He's almost won them a couple games, honestly, earlier in January. So he's been playing really well. And I really do like that line when they're all healthy of Adam Edstrom, Matt Rempe, and Sam Carrick. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does down the stretch as well. But all eyes, I think, coming back from the break are honestly on Alexis Lafrenière. It's going to be interesting to see. But let me know what you think about Alexis Lafreniere's season so far this season, what you think he could do to find more success. And let me know what you think about Sam Carrick. I've liked his game pretty much all season, but he's really turned it up a notch as of late. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.